All right. Oop, let me hit it.
And three, two, one. Hello, hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to wherever you are watching this in the world. It is Malik Mania. I am the one, the only Malik Miles. Welcome to the Conflict Management Podcast. Here is my co host.
Yeah, that's right. We're back. It's the return. The one and only Edon coming back at you guys. We're ready to break down these fights and talk about what's going on in the MMA world.
Yep, we're two dudes who are very big into the sport. We come to share our thoughts and opinions on the sport of MMA, UFC, news, and all the above. So yeah, but one of the things starting off is, did you see the Robellis heavyweight fight? The new heavyweight, the standout heavyweight Robellis. I can't pronounce his last name. Apologies, but Robellis Despain, I believe, 6'7" and 200 and I think 65 pounds. Insane.
Yeah, for sure. It's definitely a guy who a little bit reminiscent of Francis Ngannou in terms of like a guy who you could put on the screen and you don't have to list any accomplishments. He's just got that kind of fear factor and the type of like superhero build that automatically draws attention. It's before you even get to his highlight tape, which is also insane.
Yeah, I think out of like 5 fights, 6 fights, his fight time is like 19 seconds across 6 fights. This dude is a future star, in my opinion. If they keep on as trajectory as he's going, he's gonna be a star. He knocked out the dude on the back step. When have you ever seen a dude who's been like goes for a head kick, slips, falls on his butt, and then on the planting the hand backwards to get up, he's swinging backwards and hits the dude on the back foot, and then hits him again with the hook, dropping him. Insane. Like, I think that is one ridiculous amount of power, but also, if I'm not mistaken, he's also an Olympic Taekwondo bronze medalist, which is already pretty impressive because seeing his other fights is also really like cool to see, just seeing what he has done in the past, because I think we're getting to a point with heavyweights. The heavyweights division is getting very interesting because for a while it's kind of like hit or miss. It was not with how deep the division was or how stacked it is. But now we're getting people like Robelis, we got Surugan, we got Tom Aspinall. Like there's the fan favorites like Ty Tuivasa and like Derek Lewis, but like those three, like I think the heavyweight division is getting very interesting or very exciting to just see. Kind of like, and you got Jelton Almeida, like those four I think are going to be like pretty exciting to watch seeing coming up.
Yeah, for sure. It's definitely the next because it's if you remember a couple of years ago, it's we were kind of sitting around waiting for that next generation of heavyweight, and it seems like
Mm-hmm.
those guys have finally arrived. That the UFC has found that next kind of crop of talent that can come in and bring it up because it's we got to the point where Kane and JDS and that whole kind of generation had aged out and were still kind of sitting at the top of the division waiting for those new young guys to come and push them out. And it seems like where we're at right now is those guys are coming through or have already come through and placed themselves now in the sort of upper echelons of prospects and guys already who have made it in that division. So it's definitely a great job. The UFC was certainly looking for guys who could come in and fit this bill. They've cycled through quite a few guys who have ended up in different promotions who have been heavyweights. They've definitely been looking for the next kind of heavyweight and understand the type of power that having a really big presence at heavyweight has. And they did a really good job of finding those next guys because it seems like they've got quite a few of them now.
So do you think that if you are the top, or if you are the matchmakers in the war room, do you think that, or would you kind of fast track him to the top, like fast track him, kind of like put him on a like a Saragon kind of like route and kind of like fast track him to the top and getting into those fights with like Sergey Pavlovich, getting into those like Saragon fights, those Curtis Blades fights, or do you kind of like slow roll it, kind of similar to like how Sean O'Malley kind of they built him up. He was like the king of the prelims, and then eventually by the time he made it to the main card was like, showing out, just became already a star in the prelims and then kind of became a superstar once he hit the main card. Or do you think, or would you prefer they kind of fast track him like they did Alex, Cyril, and other fighters like that?
I think in this particular case, I think with heavyweight and kind of the type of fights that you can put on, I don't see a reason that you don't fast track this guy, because if you look at where heavyweight is, there's a lot of guys who have name value but aren't necessarily going to compete for titles and are kind of littered in that like back end of the top 15 slash like maybe just unranked now, who are kind of guys who are known for big stand and bang brawls. And I think that he's definitely got the skill set that you could throw him in there with those guys right away. And even if he loses, I mean, there's a little bit of shine that comes off not having the undefeated record anymore. But it's, to me, the reward and the payoff, if he could beat somebody who's like a Tai Tuivasa or somebody like that, and take that name value and run with it, to me is plenty worth it. So I think that you could throw him in there with names right now, maybe not like top 5 guys who are ready to compete for a title, but I think it's time to put him in there with name value guys and start building this kind of character, this giant, crazy, athletic, skilled guy who's here to knock people's heads off their shoulders with glancing punches.
Cause he had a dude like it looked like he hit him with his wrist, low key, like when he went with that backhand. But I think that I can see that. I think that the fast track. I think for someone who's as unique of a talent as Robel is, I think you could fast track him. Yeah, like I don't think you give him anybody in the top 5 straight off the bat. You know what I mean? I think that like, but I know he's 35, so I feel like if he was like a younger fighter, I would say kind of like, so I would like to see the slow rollout, like fight a couple people on the prelims, maybe 2-3 fights, and if you continue to knock people out on the prelims, like then kind of roll them into the like top 15, top 10, top 5, But I know that with him being, an accomplished Taekwondo Olympic champion, and then, him going back to school, getting his degree in like physical therapy, I think it was, and then, being like, I think I could, let me try my hand at the UFC. I think that, yeah, the time when you're like 30, like, I think once you're in your mid 30s, that's already kind of like pushing it on time wise. So I think, yeah, maybe somewhere in the middle, not like fast tracking him to like where you're fighting like Cyril Gane in like a couple months, but not slow roll. I think maybe give him give him maybe another fight or 2 on the prelims, and then maybe if he knocks the next guy out, because I know he has a very quick turnaround. I think he's fighting in May as well, but also I think you can fight in May if you've not, he knocked the guy out in 18 seconds of the first round. There was literally no damage. Literally no damage. So I feel like, yeah, a quick turnaround that, let's say in May, when May rolls around and he's fighting again, he knocks that guy like clean out again. Give him one more fight, maybe head like either co-main on the prelims or main event the prelims. If he dusts that guy, give him a top 10, give him a top 15, and let's see where it goes from there. Because I think he could shake up the heavyweight division, just seeing how unique of a fighter is. But I think that's another thing too, that I think that as this new crop of fighters come through, a new generation of fighters come in, or have started coming in, I think we're getting past the days of where heavyweight was like full of guys, like you having your like your stand and bang guys, you're like who are, you're like heavy sluggers, stand in the pocket and like throw. I think we're getting, I think we're kind of not long past it, but I think we're getting further and further away from it as more athletic, more talented, more gifted heavyweights start entering the UFC. When you get guys as skilled as Tom Aspinall, as skilled as Cyril Gane, as skilled as Robelis, as we've seen, guys like who are not just one dimensional. They're not just hey, I'm a grappler who can take you to the ground and like, I got cardio, or I'm just gonna stand here and just go blow for blow. Like, no, they're like technical, like, freaks of nature. Like they're very athletic, very gifted, where they could be 6'4", 6'7", 250, 260, but they're hitting you with like head kicks and like spinning back kicks and just piecing people up on the feet, So I think it would be really interesting to see moving forward how they kind of match make him. But I think that he's going to be kind of like the future moving forward. But who I also think is future worthy? Michael Venom Page, MVP. That's now we're talking more debuts, because that was Robelis' debut, and he passed with flying stars. I feel that another person who passed with flying stars, but who's kind of on the older end of like age-wise, but probably a much needed in the UFC, or much needed in the sense of like the creativity he brings, the showmanship he brings, the like just the mastery of striking, I guess you could say, the mastery that he brings in his skill set. Because I think there was a lot of pressure on MVP's back coming into the UFC, just because of how well known he was prior to. Like, I didn't watch Bellator a whole lot, barely any. However, the one person I did know, there was only two people I knew, and that was Michael Chandler, and then he later on came to the UFC. Oh, there's balloons. It was Michael Chandler who later came by, and then it was MVP. I feel like those two were the guys of the Bellator. There was a lot of great fighters, but I'm saying that as far as superstars go, I wasn't even watching Bellator, and I still knew who he was and how big of a star he was. Like that flying knee, his like the showmanship in the ring, So I think that people had set the bar very high for him coming into his UFC debut. They were like, okay, let's see how he stacks up against like the best talent in the world. Going straight into the deep end with Kevin Holland. Kevin Holland's amazing. He's a great fighter, one of the best at welterweight. And I was very interested to see how he was going to stack up against C's best. He was the best, or one of the best in Bellator, and to see like, how does he stand out, or how does he match up compared to the UFC's best. And boy, did he show up and show out. Like, I feel like he didn't have to flex on Kevin Holland that hard. But I didn't feel like well, I was a big fan. I was very impressed. I became a fan. I was already a fan, but I became a bigger fan. But I feel like he flexed on Kevin Holland so crazy that I was watching the fight. I was like, gee, that, and then the walkout. I feel like this is what we needed, in my opinion. This is what we needed in the UFC for the longest time. That creativity, that showmanship, like the creativity walking into the, to the ring. We've seen it with like people in the past, because I feel like generally walkouts in the UFC are pretty cut, like copy and paste, like Control C, Control V. You know what I mean? Everyone kind of walks out, has a similar, different things here and there, but generally it's the same. It's kind of like walk to whatever music you have. You go up to the cut man, they put the little Vaseline on you, they check your gloves. Maybe you have an interesting song or a good song, and they walk in, right? But we've seen here and there where there's sparks of like creativity, or like sparks of things that make people stand out. Like, Pereira's got the little bow and arrow thing, which is I think pretty epic. The 1-2 bow and arrow, which is pretty dope. We've seen Izzy come out with the whole dance numbers and whatnot. Like that was pretty epic. Brian Ortega coming out with the purge mask. I think those things are memorable and those things are really cool. Yo, man came out to the Undertaker, had the whole like thing going on, and then broke out into a dance number afterwards. I was like, that's how you make your stand. That's how you make yourself memorable. For your first fight, like coming in. I was wondering how, like, if he was gonna do that, and then you come out and like put on a performance. Not even a performance, like a performance, like he did. Like, what was your thoughts on the fight?
So, like you said, I think MVP might have come over with the most expectation of anybody that I can remember recently,
Mm-hmm.
because there's definitely been talented guys who came over from like different promotions, like Michael Chandler, Justin Gaethje, and there's been a few other kind of notable ones. But as far as a guy who people already had some awareness of and was known for putting on big shows like that, known for big performances, I can't remember one quite as anticipated as MVP. And like you said, completely delivered. It's not completely totally original because it's Izzy did hit the Undertaker when he fought
Mm-hmm.
Jared Cannonier, but still did it his own way. Definitely a major memorable entrance. Had the dance on the way there, and then Kevin Holland was definitely the right dance partner for it, because he definitely is a guy who likes to test himself. He's not about grinding out just decisions or boring victories. He's definitely in there to go for it and kind of give MVP the platform to possibly get one of his own moments off. And I think the whole fight, uh, MVP just kind of played at his own range, and Holland didn't really give himself a chance to win, but he also didn't kind of spoil the party either, So it's it's on Holland's end. You could kind of see it like, okay, you want to be part of this and you want to feel that kind of look and test yourself against it. Probably not what the coaches would want, I would guess. Like during the fight, I'm sure the coaches in the corner were like, "Hey, that's cool and all that you're part of this, and I know you want to get that look, but we got to be thinking about our own career, and you do get paid more with a win than with a loss. So like maybe make it grimy out there a little bit, and maybe if the crowd doesn't like it, you still go home with a win bonus. So a little bit disappointed from Kevin Holland to not give us a little bit of a different look about what MVP might see with other guys in the division. But as far as putting on a show and being fan friendly, MVP definitely delivered on everything that he said he was gonna.
Yeah, because the style, because I remember watching it, right? And seeing him, most people, your hands up, chin down, you're walking in, you know what I mean? Man's had his hands all the way down at his side on some Roy Jones Jr. type stuff. He was sitting there like, I'm not even put my hands up because you're not going to even hit me. Like, I was saying like, oh man, you gotta love the confidence, because I was just like, he had that like kind of like Taekwondo style, like he was just like, hey man, you ain't gonna even touch me. I'm not even gonna put my hands up. How often do you see Kevin Holland miss? Not very often. Like usually, if Kevin Holland he hits, he's there. You know what I mean? Like, but he had Kevin Holland missing like they were playing baseball. Like it was just swinging a miss. Like, and you don't see that because Kevin Holland's a very talented striker and he is one of the best. And you don't see him just like swing and a miss. But I guess that just shows you how skilled MVP is, because he was at a distance where you're thinking like, oh, he's not going to be able to hit him from there. And he closes the distance so fast. And just, it felt like every time he wanted to hit Kevin Holland, he hit him from like way back out here and just darted across with the right. I was very impressed because just to see how he did. I think that you could see Kevin Holland getting frustrated because I feel like if you're used to being on the winning side, you're used to being the hammer and not the nail. Like you could see that it was getting frustrating, and I feel like they did have a few like exchange, like try to like clinch exchanges, but I feel like it was pretty hard to even just keep to grab a hold of him or even keep him there.
Mm.
It'd be very interesting to see how uh, MVP does as he continues to move up the rankings. I think that this is one of those where you fast track him because obviously he's proven he's definitely top 5 material in my opinion. I would be very fascinated to see how he does against like people at the top of the division. I think that I would really like to see a Leon Edwards versus MVP in the UK. I think that would be major. That would be pretty awesome to see. But I'd be curious to see how he does against a wrestler. Like, I think that would be really fascinating. But
Is there a
I think
person
that,
that you
but
have in mind that like you'd want to see him face next? Like if you were picking?
let's
Like I
see. Let's
mean,
see who's
Edwards is
on.
a little bit kind of out of the conversation because obviously he's the
Yeah,
champ and MVP just got one win over a top 15 guy. You're not really going to parlay that right into a title shot.
absolutely. I'm looking up the rankings right now to see who's up there. Let's see. This is where do they have? They have MVP at 13. So I think that I know some people wanted to see a fight between him and his Wonder Boy. I'm personally not here for that. I think that stylistically it could be a cool fight to see, two strikers, but no, I don't think that the fans, no one wants to see like what happened to Kevin Holland happen to Wonder Boy. You know what I mean? Like, and just as a fan of Wonder Boy and a fan of MVP, I just wouldn't want to see that happen. I think that it would be, but as far as wrestlers, I think, let's see, I think MVP beats Neil Magny. I feel like he beats Vicente Luque. Um, I think he beats Jeff Neal. He beats Wonder Boy. He beats Sean Brady. If he took on Sean Brady, I think that would be interesting, but I think he beats him. I think that I would like to see him go against, as far as grapplers go, maybe a Gilbert Burns, because that's like a different style. Because Gilbert has hands, but he's known for his jujitsu. And I think that seeing him take on an opposite style like that, because as you get closer to the top of welterweight, there's a lot of wrestling heavy guys. You got your like Colby Covington, you got your Shavkat Rachmanovs, you got your Kamaru Usmans, like 3 guys who are like Shavkat's not. I mean, he's not a wrestler per se, but he's good at it. I feel like Shavkat's just someone who's good at everything. He's got the striking, he's got the grappling, he's got the jiu-jitsu, that area of the game, and he's good at it. I don't think we've seen a hole yet in Shavkat's game. But I've also been telling people since 2019, since the early days, since 2020, since probably the very early days, since back when Shavkat was on like the early prelims, like bottom of the prelims, that like I was like, yo, this dude is about to be a beast. Like when he made his debut, I was like, oh, this guy is gonna be someone. And then now he's what, 3? Like 18 and 0, 19 and 0, 9 knockouts, 8 submissions. Like, but I think once you get people like who are that good, or like Colby Covington, who's a wrestler, Kamaru Usman, who's a wrestler, I think to be successful, I think Leon Edwards has proved to be successful at welterweight, you got to be able to either know enough, be good enough at wrestling to defend the takedowns and keep it on the feet to play to your advantage, or learn enough wrestling to like, if you want to go into the ground. But I think that like, just like Leon Edwards, I think it benefits him more to be at the top, at the fight from the top, because I think he does his Ian Gary. But I think, yeah, long story long, because not even a long story short. Gilbert Burns. I think Gilbert Burns would be, because he's here. He's mentioned he's not here to slow roll it. He wants to go deep into the division, deep into the rankings. He's here to like here for a good time, not a long time. He wants big challenges, big interesting fights. I think that Gilbert Burns would be that person who could give him that kind of interesting fight because he's also a striker, but he's like really great grappler, and he's not he's a hard fight for any person. But what about you? Who would you put him up against next?
I like the Burns thing. I think that Burns at number 6 is probably the highest that you could give him off of one fight, especially with
Mm-hmm.
Burns coming off the loss to JDM. So
Mm-hmm.
I kind of like that
Which
idea.
is also a crazy fight.
Yeah, which we could talk about that right after this, but
Yeah.
I think I understand why the initial reaction was like, oh, let's get him in there with Wonder Boy, but I think basically MVP did a really good job in the media afterwards of being kind of the explainer to why that wouldn't be a good one and why that's
Mm-hmm.
not the type of fight he's trying to have, because basically he explained that it would be more of a points fest and it wouldn't be the type of scenario, the type of matchup that would produce the big moments that he's looking for. So I think he did a really good job of basically telling and kind of educating everybody about why that wouldn't be good and why we don't want that actually, which is one of the few times I think someone's done a really good job of doing that and sort of telling it honestly, where normally you have a guy who, if he doesn't want to fight somebody, it's because either A, he'll think he'll lose. It's usually not for entertainment purposes, but then on the other end, even if it is for entertainment purposes, they usually just insult the other guy rather than explain like, no, this matchup wouldn't be very good, and I can tell you why. And when someone hits you with a very detailed expert opinion like that, it's hard to disagree. So I think he did a really good job of that. And if it's not going to be Burns, I think the other one I might like to see is Jeff Neal, because he's ranked number 10. He's right there inside the top 10. And if you're saying, okay, you don't have enough of a name brand inside the UFC yet to take on one of the upper echelon, like near the title guys, the next best thing to me is a guy inside the top 10 that you can use as a platform if you have a big moment. So trying to get a big moment off Jeff Neal, who's got some heavy hands himself, who's going to, when it's in close, present that danger of one of those big, clinch uppercuts or big hooks if he's got him pressed back against the cage. And Jeff Neal has produced some big highlights himself in the cage. He's not top 10 for no reason. So it's definitely a good amount of danger in there with him that you could use to sell the fight and kind of put some doubt in everybody's mind about how this could go. Because if Jeff Neal catches you with one of them big hooks, it's going to go down. So I think those are kind of the two that I think would be good. But yeah, let's talk about the Gilbert Burns JDM fight, because that was a huge moment.
Oh yeah. Do you know this dude I found this out later. He was fighting with a broken arm. That's crazy. Yo, JDM is built different out here. Like to like not only fight with a broken arm, but to win. And not even to just win with a broken arm, to finish your opponent. Not even that. Not even to finish your opponent with a broken arm. That's already a wild thing. But to finish Gilbert Burns, one of the top people at welterweight, with one arm, that is crazy. And then I think that was gonna be the big moment for JDM to see like, oh, where do you stack up against someone as good as a Gilbert Burns who has the wrestling? And I think Gilbert Burns fought a great fight during the whole fight. And I think that he was on his way to winning, and then until he got like finished. But yeah, that was a wild one, because I was actually I was kind of torn between who to go for, JDM or Burns, and I was just like, hey, I'm a fan of both. Whoever wins, I still win, because like a fan of both fighters. What I would like Burns to get the win, of course, but it is cool to see like how like JDM's career kind of progresses. He continues to stack wins on top of each other.
Yeah, and I mean, probably even bigger than the fight is, to stand there with a broken arm and call out the guy nobody wants and who are people are actively ducking, to hop on the mic
Yo,
with a broken arm and
yeah.
call out Shavkat and say, "This is a title decider. I'm putting up the stakes. I'm telling you what it's for. I'm telling you who I want and why I want him." I mean, that's a BA move right there.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Because no, name a person who's calling out Shavkat Rakhmonov, the boogeyman of the welterweight division, the guy who was to a lot of people, a no one, and then became the boogeyman over the course of like 3 years. I'm telling you, I've been telling people from the bottom of the mountain to the top of the mountain to the middle of the mountain to end it across the country. And anybody who listened, no matter if it was like a shoe store, like a wing spot, whatever it was, I was like, hey, this guy Shavkat Rakhmonov, he's that guy. He's gonna be that guy. And and to see, people have been ducking, dodging, and evading. Like, remember that movie Dodgeball
Mm-hmm.
with what I'm talking about, when the guy was
Yeah,
like, what he was like the 3Ds, dodgeballs,
yeah.
dodge, and evading. He started with the D, and he threw the wrench.
Mhm.
I think that's what he had said in the thing. That's people when it comes to fighting Shavkat. They're like, Shavkat is the wrench. The flying wrench. People are dodging, evading. They'd be anytime someone asks somebody about Shavkat, they'd be like, "Hey, what do you think Shavkat?" They'd be like, "You know who else would be really great to fight? This guy." That's a name. You've even seen people as goaded as Kamaru Usman say like even Kamaru Usman, like it was a smart decision from him. Even as great as he is, it was like, hey, who would you like to fight? And someone asked him, and they said, "What about Shavkat?" Kamaru Usman's like it was a very skillful like redirection, but he was just like he laughed at him. He was like, "Hey, I didn't know we was talking about me. I thought we was talking about who's next to fight Leon." And then he said, then he kind of like got him with the direction and said, "Hey, but what makes sense? I think Bilal's the one that makes sense next," and which is a good call out. But I think it's also smart from from Kamaru's side, being like a guy who's just surging, and you gotta be. I feel like smart with the career, because it's like you lose to Shavkat while he is a beast. You don't, and when Kamaru comes back, it's like you don't want to, because if I'm not mistaken, Kamaru's on like a 3-fight losing streak right now, because it was like 2 to
Mhm.
Leon and then 1 to Hamzat, right? You
Yes.
don't want to take. You got to be. I think it's like, just from a business perspective, you got to be smart with your career. Like, you're already on a 3-fight losing streak. You are one of the best welterweights ever. You know what I mean? Like, he is the closest welterweight to GSP. However, he is on a little bit of a like 3-fight losing streak. You don't want to take your chances and gamble on a Shavkat fight. Like, that's gonna be a hard night in the office for anybody. It's like it's a smarter, it's a good fight to fight Bilal, another like wrestler, and someone who is uh who's a top fighter. Because I've been telling people Bilal's that guy too. He's gonna be that guy. But I think it's a better fight to fight Bilal, because I think in a Bilal fight, as much as I like Bilal, I think Kamaru Usman versus Bilal Muhammad, I think that's like 70-30 Usman's winning. As much as I like Bilal, that's just the facts of it. You know what I mean? And
Mhm.
maybe not, but because you guys are fine, you got to have your own like thing. But you're talking about the second best welterweight ever. Is like, you know what I mean? But against Shavkat, I feel that's kind of like a 50-50 toss up. You know what I mean? Where it's just like, and any person there's been a number of fighters. I think Kamaru's just the most notable one, but there's been a couple of fighters who've been like, that Shavkat's been tossed out there, and they said, who's also great? That's like if someone offers to go to a restaurant you don't really want to go to, they'd be like, What about this? They'd be like, you know what is also great? Chili's. let's you know that 2 for 20. Yeah, you can't beat that deal. It's a great time. It's like, you know what I mean? It's like people are like people are duck dodging and avoiding it. And for Jack Miller to like straight up, and also art of the call out, people just don't get it. But that was just top tier call out from JDM to be like, hey, I got a broken arm. I just finished Gilbert Burns. Yo, give me Shopcop. Hey, bro, wherever you are, let's sign on the dotted line. You know, I think that's the face. It was even like for the media to ask him about Shafkat or like Shafkat come out and call him out. Now he said, "Hey, let's make it happen. Title eliminator, all the chips forward. What do you say? You know, and kind of put the ball in Shafkat's court now to be like, hey, let's make this happen and see what he says, because I think super just epic call out. I think that was a really good call on his part. But you know, at the same time, you know who I kind of feel bad for in this kind of like welterweight shuffle of like Shavkat, JDM, now people are talking about MVP, Kamaru Usman's in that, like still in that mix kind of, you know who I kind of feel bad for?
Who?
Bilal Muhammad. Technically, what is he, like number 4? What is he? Let's see.
I believe he's number.
He's number 2.
Yep.
And has the record, technically, if you're looking just records, right? He's on the, what is he? 23-3. And I think he's on like some like 7-fight win streak, 8-fight win streak. Let me just double check. I know he's on a crazy win streak right now. Let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah. 6, 7. Yeah. He's been on a streak. You know what I mean? You know, it's the unfortunate thing. While he is a good fighter, I think that the reason he gets, you let me know your opinion. I could be totally wrong, but I think that what does him a disservice, right? Like he has the fight, he has the ability to be like I said, I've been telling you for a minute now, probably since Bilal was on the prelims, that like, hey, this guy is a future top 5, top 3 contender, potentially champion level material, because he has a style that's just hard to go against. He's just got cardio for days, and he's a pressure fighter. He's just gonna he's at 100. He's foot on the pedal, 100 miles per hour, and just gonna like pressure you until like you melt. But I think that while that is very, you know, it's an impressive style to have, I think he has a fighting style that's not interesting for like casual fans. Like for a casual fan, he doesn't have the best fight style for, you know what I mean? Like for people who are more into the sport, hardcore fans who've been watching for a while, or just fans of martial arts or fans of combat sports in general, I think they can appreciate like the skill set he has, the wrestling skill set, the striking, of him just having like the cardio for days and just really pressuring people, getting them the strikes, the grappling, because he has the skills to be a champion or fight for the belt. But his fight style isn't necessarily, I think, for like casuals or like people who just started like watching. I don't know. I think and also he doesn't have the personality. I think from what I hear, this is just from what I hear, I think for whatever reason, I think it's like WWE almost. he hasn't gotten over with the fans for whatever reason. He just hasn't gotten over with the fans yet. Like for whatever the reason is, the MMA community just it has not just been feeling him. He just hasn't gotten over with the fans. So I think that because of that, people who have more of a fan friendly fight style, I guess you could say, like Shavkat, who's finishing every single person he fights against, 100% finish rate, 9 knockouts, 8 submissions. He's coming in doing people up. First round finish, second round finish, third round finish. You know what I mean? Like he's finishing a lot of people very early. You know what I mean? You got JDM finishes. You know what I mean? Like, and great on the mic. You know what I mean? Like the call out, you know? You got people who are super established, like Kamaru Usman, you know what I mean? Who's got a resume of fights. But for whatever reason, he's just I feel like he's done what he should do or has to do, but I think he just hasn't gotten over with the fans. And I think that's hurting him because it is K-Trap, but at the end of the day, it's a business. And I think if you see Bilal on the top of a pay-per-view, like it's like if you see Leon versus Bilal, do you buy that pay-per-view? I think, you know what I mean? I feel like as a fan of the UFC, I watch I watch all these fights, so I would watch them because I'm a fan of both Bilal and Leon. But I'm trying to think of like the casual fan. Does the casual fan go? I'm paying for that, you know?
Yeah, probably not.
Compared if you saw like
you'd probably want to pair them with another title fight and have them be like a title co-main on like a bigger card. If you were thinking about like this is a match that's got to get done. But I mean, I don't know what's kind of next because it's Bilal's last fight was May of last year against Gilbert Burns in that 5-round decision. So is he going to get booked versus Leon Edwards? And if not, how long is he going to wait before he fights again? Because it's not like, I don't know, the fans aren't going to riot because Gilbert Burns, or rather, Bilal Muhammad doesn't get a title shot. So if he's saying, like, oh, I'm going to stand on business that I deserve it, and if you don't give it to me, then it's, you'll have to pay for it and you're not going to get another fight out of me. It's like, I don't know if you have the cards for that to play that strategy. And with Gilbert losing afterwards, it makes your win look worse than it did at the time. So now Gilbert's at 6. You don't have a win over a top 5 guy, and you're not really doing a great job of creating heat with the champion. So like, if the UFC decides that they're going to go a different direction, where does that leave him? And what are you going to do? Because it's not going to look good either way, because the guys up at the top are going to get matched up versus other people, and you're kind of taking your boat out of the water, and people are just going to forget about you. Because if the JDM Shavkat fight goes down, whoever wins that is going to have the kind of backing of the people, and it's going to be the hype of the moment that people are going to want to see that guy go fight for the title. So if you don't get it in before then, or if you're still waiting around, you're probably going to have to fight somebody else. So is he in negotiations and that's why we're not hearing anything? Or is he just hoping? Like, because hope's not a strategy, man. He's got to get something going, and soon, because it's been almost a year since your last victory, and you're not really putting out anything to keep people engaged with your story. So how is that going to translate to you either getting the title shot or getting the people to go and demand that, and I just don't see it right now.
Right, like, so in your opinion, right?
Mm-hmm.
Two-part question for you. Why is it, because you just mentioned that the UFC fans aren't going to riot if Bilal doesn't get a title shot, because the division is pretty stacked right now, and there's like 4 or 5 people who could be fighting for the title,
Mm-hmm.
and it could be 4 or 5 title fights before Bilal gets a chance. And why is it like, if Shavkat didn't get the chance or JDM didn't get the chance, you know what I mean? I think fans would be like, hey, this guy's like 19-0, this is that, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Uh, or JDM being like, yo, this dude fought with one arm, blah blah blah. Why is it, do you think, that the fans, he hasn't gotten over with the fans? Or why do you think they would it's that part? Because I think a lot of it is like how over you are with the fans. I think it's, even though UFC and WWE are two different sports, I think they're still like, I I think they are both performance related, like sports. You know what I mean? It's like, how over are you with the fans? Like, like a John Cena. You know what I mean? John
Mm-hmm.
Cena was over with the fans. I mean, at one point he wasn't, but once he started like getting into the John Cena that we grew up on, and you saw how over he was with the fans, you saw him go from a dude on the roster to like a face of the company, like a Cody Rhodes, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Who was, what, like Stardust at some point, or like the dashing Cody Rhodes, who wasn't like, I don't know a person today who's like the dashing Cody Rhodes. That's my kind of guy. Like, that's a superstar I'm willing to get behind. But the American Nightmare Cody Rhodes, people are like, oh, I'm here for that. You know what I mean? He got the music, got the whoa. You know what I mean? When it comes out, like, people are like, oh man, he got the Kobe cut at the crossroads. The fans can get behind that. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
What is it that you think that he's missing to get for the fans to get behind him? Like, you saw Izzy, he was very over with the fans, and that's kind of what got him, him being just an epic fighter, but also he had the people with him. Alex Pereira, epic fighter, but he had the people with him, and that's what kind of fast tracked him. We're seeing that now with Bo Nickel, epic fighter, epic wrestler, you know what I mean? But he has the fans with him, so it's like kind of speeding him. Sean O'Malley, really good fighter, but he had the fans with him, and that kind of boosted his stock. You know what I mean? But like,
Mm-hmm.
was it that what do you think is it that he's missing to like get over with the fans? And other part is, what do you think he needs to get a title shot? I guess.
So I think the reason that he's not kind of over is because I think all accounts that have ever been shared on a UFC broadcast or anywhere sort of related are that Bilal's a super nice guy. So
Mhm. He
I
is.
think that the position he wants to occupy is to be the face. The problem with that is if the people don't want you as their face, there's nothing you can do. You'll never be face. Like, if they just don't want you to be. So I think he's trying to be that, but they're just not accepting it. So, and being a face is more than just being a nice guy. You could be a super nice guy, but you got to have a certain look about you and a certain kind of energy to be a face. Like, Izzy on his rise, Connor on his rise, Sean O'Malley, it's Alex when he had momentum. These guys all created faces that people could get behind, and people wanted to imagine themselves as them. They wanted those guys to be their representatives. They wanted to see themselves in those guys. And I think part of it is fighting style, because when you imagine yourself as a UFC fighter, you don't want to imagine that you're a very technical, talented guy with a good gas tank who is really good at wrestling and grappling and puts on really hard fights on guys and they don't want to fight you, but doesn't necessarily get finishes and you don't have necessarily a great fear factor about you in general. Like people don't want to fight you, but no one's scared of you. No one thinks like, "Oh, this guy's gonna change my life if I fight him." So I think part of it is what happens in the cage, and I think the other part about it is just kind of the look and the personality part that comes into it. Because when you're looking for a face, you don't just want to be a nice guy. Like being just kind of a nice boy almost, you know what I mean? Of like, oh man, like does all the right thing and like pillar of the community. Even the nice guys have like an edge that makes them kind of rootable. Like guys like, especially right now where we're at kind of in media and culture, nobody thinks like, oh, Superman's like the best character and I love and identify with Superman. It's people want faults and kind of an edge that they can attach themselves onto because they're also flawed. So like there are guys who the kind of community just attaches themselves to anyway, whether because they identify with their faults or whether they want to be like them, but they present a sort of image that people can get behind. And I think just being a nice guy who works really hard isn't kind of enough anymore. You need something else. Like to me, the moment Khabib really like got over, even with the English speaking audience, was when he was on top of Conor, beating an apology out of him, and then jumped the cage. Because like before that, he was this very kind and respectful guy who just kind of went about his business and was winning, but he wasn't really getting the crowd to back him yet. I mean, there were other people who could identify with how he conducted himself and his religion and stuff like that, and he had a fan base for it. But the kind of moment that it turned for everybody in the kind of sphere in the United States and all that, and culturally, was when he's on top of somebody being a complete animal, just beating an apology out of him, saying like, "Let's talk now," and then jumps the cage and starts fighting it. Like there was a wild moment of release that everybody went, "That's a bad man right there. That's like who I want." This like guy who controls himself but is an animal on the inside. And there are even points where even he will break bad. He will go over the top. And I think people, there's no kind of edge with Bilal to hold on to. There's not like people view him more as like a teddy bear that happens to be good at fighting. They don't see like a personality and an edge and a character development that they can get behind. They don't know. I'm sure he has some sort of like struggle or something like that, but nobody knows it to identify with it. They don't see any personality trait that they can identify with because we're not all fighters. Like we don't do that stuff. So as much as acquiring those skills is very hard and having great cardio is very hard, I mean, you saw what Colby was able to do with it. Before he invented a character that and decided to turn heel, he tried to be face. No one cares. Like, oh, you're a very good wrestler? I don't care. Like, you're the same nationality as me? I don't care. You got to give me more. It's not enough. People demand to be entertained in order to give you support. And to me, it's he hasn't presented that other element that people are looking for, and he doesn't want to be the heel.
You know, you mentioned something, right? That I just thought about, and I think I figured out that, and that's fair. Your points are fair. You know what I think I figured out the missing puzzle piece for Bilal because we've talked about it before. I like Bilal. I think he should get a title shot. I know we've been kind of going back and forth saying that he's not like over with the fans or like all Shop Carter, JDM's probably gonna get a title shot over him. But we've had conversations before where I was like, I like Bilal, and I think he's a great fighter, and I think he should get a shot. Like if we're going off of just skills and like meritocracy and all that, I think he should get the shot, right?
Mm-hmm.
But again, you got to be over with the fans. People got to care, about you and what is it that you're saying. And I think I figured it out. I think I figured out the missing puzzle piece for him.
Hmm.
He needs a dance partner who can take him to the next level. You know what I mean? He needs that rival. Because you mentioned with Khabib, right? Like when he got over with the fans. Personally, what I think the moment that he got over with the fans is the fight with Conor.
Hmm.
Conor was already such a big personality and he was already such a big star that the feud with Conor is what I think brought Khabib into mainstream awareness because of how big Conor was. And that was such a big feud. Yes, it did get nasty and ugly, you know what I mean? But I think that whole fight, like regardless of all the outside of fights shenanigan that was going on, I think that rivalry is a rivalry that will live on in MMA history. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
I think that like another one is like Kamaru versus Colby. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's another big rivalry. You know what I mean? Tito Ortiz versus Chuck Liddell, another big rivalry. Quentin Rampage Jackson versus Wanderlei Silva, another big rivalry. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
What you call it? Brandon Moreno versus Davison Figueroa, another big rivalry that I think that kind of benefited both fighters that made them like, hey, these are the guys at this division. I think what's another one? DC and John Jones, another really big rivalry. Anderson Silva and Chael Sonnen. You know what I
Hmm.
mean? I think that you need someone who's gonna take you to the next level. You need that person who's gonna kind of like push you to that next level, like in the fight, of course, but like also in like you're in the media, you know what I mean? Where it's like I think Izzy's fight with Whitaker, both like because I think that one was also a big moment for Izzy's career, like the kind of like New Zealand versus Australia thing, and then it was kind of like because if I'm not mistaken, they fought twice, right?
Yeah, they had the first one, which was the
The
huge,
first one,
massive sellout.
the huge, that was crazy, and then there was like the second one, right? And I
Mhm.
think those moments that those are the moments that I feel like live on, you know what I mean? And I'm pretty sure I'm forgetting another one, but I think that he doesn't have something like that right now.
Well,
Bilal doesn't have a rival per se. I guess you could say Leon, but with the eye poke, but that's not really anything you can grab hold on to.
I think he
And
could.
I
I think
think
the
like
problem is, like you're saying, at the top of the division, it's most of those guys are also pretty nice guys. And
mhm.
so if you're below, you have to be willing to be not so nice in order to get what you want. And so if you want to find yourself opposite of Leon, it's obviously you don't have to go as far as Colby did, 'cause it's Colby's over there
Yeah,
in
definitely
in
not.
his own contest trying to be like the heelest heel of all time. So it's you don't have to go that far, but you do have to put yourself opposite him. It's you do have to bring him opposition. You do have to say something that prompts a response. And whether he's too nice for that or he just doesn't want to, it's hurting him that he can't get that spot across from him because he won't challenge him outside of a very respectful, like martial arts kind of way.
Also, you know what he could do too?
Hmm.
But I think the rival is the answer. I think he needs someone to kind of like a rival that
Hmm.
was like or he needs a transformation, like a drastic transformation. Of course, like Oliveira, like Super Saiyan Oliveira. Now that he has like the blonde hair, because I feel like he went to another level. It took him to another level when he got that blonde, when he dyed his hair blonde. Oliveira prior to the blonde hair to now Oliveira now, that's like mythical fighter unlocked. You know what I mean? Like I think Oliveira with the blonde hair, I feel like it was him getting up to lightweight. he just got over with the fans. You know what I mean? Like I think, if you look at Oliveira prior to, like, he was a fighter people like, but he was kind of like a 500 fighter, and then like he just was. I think when he became Super Saiyan Oliveira, he kind of like, and then was stringing these wins together. Like finishes. I think that he got over. He got over with the fans in such a way where he doesn't even speak English. He speaks Portuguese in every interview, but you could just hear it when he speaks. I feel like he just got that charisma, you know what I mean? Where, I don't know a word Oliveira is saying. My Portuguese is so basic now. Like, it's way outside of my vocabulary level, and I don't even know what man's saying, but I just be like, man, yeah, whatever he's saying, yeah, like, whatever that man said, like, yes, that. Because you could feel like Oliveira just has this kind of main character energy, you know what I mean? This charisma, this aura, that where he's like, man, and just hearing Oliveira's story of where he started out to where now, overcoming the odds, making the impossible possible, you know what I mean? I don't think Oliveira's ever had to turn heel, you know what I mean? Because he just, he has such just this energy about him, this like charisma, the like you hearing the story about like where he started to where he is now, all these UFC records that he's breaking, most finishes, most submission finishes. You know what I mean? Like, it is a truly like he's like the phoenix of the UFC. You know what I mean? Like he was like where he was to like I feel like the rebirth was kind of like with the Super Saiyan Oliveira type thing where the fans love him. You know what I mean? I think that maybe, I'm not saying Bilal Muhammad should dye his hair blonde or anything, but like maybe he just needs like something, you know what I mean? Because I think his mic skills could be worked on a bit more. Maybe that's what it is. Maybe he just needs the transformation of sorts, or maybe he needs like Tai Tuivasa has the shui that he does after fights. You know what I mean? Alex Pereira has the bow and arrow. Maybe he needs something. Maybe he needs something to kind of like get him over with the fence. Maybe he should, like, a story. I think it's similar. I think it could be too. He needs a reason for people to care. Because I was told this saying once that no one cares how much you know unless they know how much you care. You know what I mean? And maybe it's a kind of a situation, kind of, I guess, not like that per se, but like a similar situation where he knows he can be a champion. He has the skills to be a champion, but not kind of like no one cares. Not a lot of fans are caring right now because he necessarily hasn't really given them a reason to care. You know what I mean? Maybe he has a story, maybe telling his story. You know what I mean? Some people don't want to talk about it, but maybe he's overcome something, like an underdog story, maybe he has something about him that is like interesting. Maybe like, no one knew about Marab until the Michael Jackson Thriller jacket thing, until he kind of took Shadow O'Malley jacket. And then you see him on social media and like, yo, Marab's a fun guy. Like when you see him, like his personality on social media, you're like, man, this dude from Georgia. I'm trying to see what he's about. Like, he's a funny guy. He's a fun guy, and people like enjoy that about him. You know what I mean? And also, he's got, similar to Bilal, crazy cardio, amazing wrestler. He's a fun guy, and people like gravitate towards that. So maybe Bilal showing more of his personality. If he doesn't want to be the heel, maybe showing more of that personality of like, if he is a fun guy, like outside of UFC, being like, maybe showing that on social media. I don't follow him on social media. Maybe he's doing that right now, but maybe, I don't know. That's what I'm thinking. Either he needs a rival, like or transformation, show more personality. To your point, maybe consider like the whole face heel situation. I think what else could happen? I think in combination with that, if he does fight Kamaru Usman, a first round finish would go a long way to making people kind of like take notice. Like if he were to finish Kamaru in the first round.
I mean, for sure, that's kind of the other thing is if he was tearing through people, we wouldn't really be having this conversation in this
That
way,
is also
because like
fair.
Shavkat's pretty over with the whole audience, and it's
Oh
just
yeah.
from performance. Like I never heard him speak English. I don't know if he can or like can say more than like hi or something like that. But he's very over with most of the audience just because it's his skills are so crazy and he finishes people. So I think if you're gonna have that stuff, and I mean even with Marab
And he's got the hat.
Really, sorry
Yeah,
everybody, but
Devalsky. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
it's I mean even with him, like not only the hat and the stuff and like the jacket and the personality coming through, it's his last fight. He fought with personality at the same time. He was picking up Cejudo, dragging him over to Mark Zuckerberg, and then slamming him down into the mat, and like looking at other people while he was fighting. Like there's a level of personality even in the performance that makes people interested, that is entertaining to see. Whereas you just don't really get that with Bilal. And I understand like it's a super tough division and it's a really tough place to be, and he's absolutely earned more credit than he gets. But the reality of the situation is he's not showcasing a lot of personality for people to get behind. And the character that he's kind of placing himself into is not a very exciting one. I mean, he wouldn't be a main character if it was like a comic book or a TV show. He'd be a very background character
Mhm.
in the division. And it's very rare that you see somebody who's like a background character in a show that everyone's like, "Oh, that guy's my favorite." Like it's not going to happen that
Mhm.
the guy who works the newsstand in the Superman comic is everyone's favorite character. Like people aren't going to be devastated if they write that guy out of the comic. It's not going to happen. So it's you either have to push yourself into a different role or kind of change the way that people perceive you, or you just got to kind of keep doing what you're doing, and you're never going to really get to your major goals.
Yeah, you know what he needs to do, like you mentioned. He needs to pull a he yeah, you figure out if your gimmick's not getting over, or if your character, it's probably not a character. It's probably just like, hey, this is who I am. If you're not getting over the fans, you need to pull back when uh another pro wrestling reference, he needs to do what John Cena did way back in the day. He needs to go from being the prototype to being John Cena. You know, when John Cena was a prototype, he wasn't over with fans. He wasn't over. It's just a fact. He just wasn't over with fans. He was about to get cut from the company, and then we'd have never had the legend that is John Cena. You know what I mean? Like, and then, but he went from the prototype to being John Cena, and just took a chance on it. Just took a chance of being on the character, the person, the personality that was John Cena back when he was rapping in the ring, or doing the freestyles, and then just over time how he kind of just went to being the never give up guy to being like the face of the company. If he'd have stayed as the prototype, we'd have never known he had such a like charismatic personality, such an energy about, what I mean? Like the world would have never known it, right? If he'd have stayed the prototype, no one would have ever known who he was. You know what I mean? It would just been another guy who signed, was a part of the WWF, WWE. No one ever knew, right? I think that is similar to what's his face. If Clark Kent just stayed Clark Kent for the rest of his life, like everybody been like, "Oh, you're the dude that works in the newsroom." You know what I mean? Like him being Superman was like, I mean, like, I don't know. I still don't get how you don't realize Clark Kent is Superman. It's just glasses. He's really doing nothing different. He's just like, glasses. Now I'm wearing glasses and tights, and people are like, oh my God, we don't know who that is. And you're just like, that's Steven accounting. You know what I mean? Like, but you know what I mean? The transformation he needs to figure out something to get over with the fans. Maybe just, if you are a wrestler and that's where that's the hill you're gonna like go with or stand on, do like Marab did. Pick a dude up and just be like, yeet, and then just walk across the ring and just like, just like say I'm down to do something. Yeah, I think that's what he needs. I think that in a combination of like a quick finish somewhere, like first round, second round finish, something like that. But speaking of heels and faces, like I feel like Bilal is gonna be fine at some point, right? Like, but this situation is kind of a head scratcher because you mentioned heels and you mentioned Colby, like the relation with him and Ian Gary.
Mhm.
Like, before I give my thoughts on it, I'm curious to hear your thoughts on the whole like Colby Ian Gary situation.
Okay, so the timeline of events is Colby got called out by Ian a while ago after Ian's last fight, if I remember correctly. And then it
Yeah,
took a while, but recently on, I think, Instagram, Colby answered with a video. And now it's
it's
become
wild.
every few days, basically a back and forth between the two of them where someone will put up a video and then the next one will answer. And we've been kind of going like that for a few days here. And to me, I understand why they're both interested in this fight in a certain sense. Although I don't think that it should happen because I think it will be like an all-time bad show for the UFC if they end up putting this together, even though it kind of makes sense on paper. So to me, the way that this should work in theory is like, oh, you got a grappler versus a striker. Those are usually good matchups to watch because you're going to see somebody like take advantage, and there'll be these different type of moments in the fight where someone will be at an advantage, someone will be at a disadvantage. Makes for good moments. The problem is when you inject both of their personalities into the fight and the whole like pre pre-fight conferences and stuff like that. I think whoever ends up being the main event for the card they're on is going to be so sick of both of them by the time like fight time runs around that they might start blowing off media duties because like you have Ian Gary who went from like super face to now has become heel and he's not over with the audience right now. And then you have Colby who's in his own like race versus himself to be the heelest heel of all time that is so under with the fans that no one can even touch it. And so I guess for Gary, his thought would be, oh, well, this is probably the only guy that I could fight at the top of the division who I'm going to go over against because people like me more. The problem is he's been so unlikable recently that I don't know how it's going to turn out, which means that if Colby starts to get cheered, he's not going to like that and he's going to go against that, which will lead to maybe something even more insane than what he said to Leon last time, which is why I think the UFC
Which is
should
super
steer
out of
away.
pocket.
Yeah, because it's whoever he goes against, he's trying to go under. He's purposefully trying to go. He doesn't care about putting the person over. He's trying to go under. He wants to be under. And if you have somebody who's already like 10 feet deep in the earth with the fans, he's got to match that and go like 20 feet deep down in order to get under. Because he wants, when his music hits, to hear like the "you suck" chants and the boos. That's what he's looking for. So to me, the UFC should desperately avoid this because of what will happen if you put them together. And to me, I also don't understand why this is happening because if you're Colby, I think there's other guys that you could have a better matchup with and B like could be probably more fun. I mean, you could probably have a pretty good argument that in terms of like what this will be on social media for Colby in particular, it's probably a pretty good thing because he's going to get a bunch of attention for some insane stuff that he's going to say. Uh, for Gary, I don't understand why he's doing this at all. Like, there's probably easier marks that you could take and guys who you could just fight in a normal fight and move on away from this storyline that you're creating for yourself, and I don't know why you're doing it to yourself, because like this storyline in particular for Ian Gary, it all ends in tears. Like there's no way this is going to go well. It's Colby's going to say some insane stuff that's going to make you very upset and is going to live forever on like MMA meme pages and stuff like that. Like it's going to be on the internet forever. The type of crazy stuff he's going to say about you and your family, like that, it's not going away ever. People will be quoting Colby back to you for the next decade plus. So I don't know why you want that in your life. And again, I don't know why you're leaning into this story. You know he's going to talk about your wife. Why are you choosing to make that? Why is the UFC showing her like off to the side by herself before your fights? I don't understand why this storyline keeps going, and I don't understand why Ian Gary's encouraging it.
Yeah, this is such an interesting series of development because, as you know, Colby Covington is my literal least favorite fighter on the roster. We've talked about it multiple times. I do not like the character Colby is playing at all. I don't like him. I've never been a fan of Colby Covington, whether he was a face, whether he was a heel. I didn't know about him. I knew of him as a face, didn't really know too much to care just because I just didn't know who he was. And as a heel, I definitely don't like him. But that being said, that means he's doing I guess you could say a good job, because a heel's job is to be disliked. So I guess you could say in that manner, he is doing the job he intended to do. He's as a heel, he is succeeding because there are people who, dislike, you know what I mean? Because I think that the worst thing, them being over or under with fans, is people not caring about you.
Right.
Because if you're over with the fans, people want to see you win. People want to, like Wonder Boy. Wonder Boy is one of my favorites. Wonder Boy, everyone wants to see Wonder Boy win. I don't know a person alive. I don't know a person at all. I don't even know a person, animal, anime character. I don't know anybody who doesn't like Wonder Boy. I feel like if someone came up to me and said, I don't like Wonder Boy, I probably wouldn't trust that person. I'm like, there's something about you that just don't sit right with my spirit. If you don't like Wonder Boy, there's something wrong with you. You know what I mean? Like if someone actually told me they didn't like Wonder Boy is the nicest human being alive. I think if someone actually had a gripe with Wonder Boy, I don't think I could trust that person, because I'm just like, it's like someone who would eat a hamburger from the top down. You just be like, something about that just feels unnatural. You know what I mean? Like to like on Wonder Boy's, you know what I mean? To just like Wonder Boy, or you know what I mean? Where it's like another face, people who are super over, right? Like Izzy. I feel like Izzy is still fairly over with the fans. Tai Tuivasa over with the fans. You want to see Tai win. You want to see Izzy win. You want to see Wonder Boy win. You want to see Brandon Moreno win. You know what I mean? Like you want to see all these guys do well, right? And then people who are under with the fans, like people are tuning in to see Colby lose, or you're turning there. He does have a fan base of people who want to see him win. He does have a fan base of people who want to see him lose. You know what I mean? People care a way. Some people have a reason to care one way or another, right? Who's another person who was like under, like Chael Sonnen when he was fighting?
I would argue John Jones is current. I think that a lot more
John
people
Jones
are tuning in to see John Jones lose than they admit in public.
I think so. Like I was a fan of John Jones. I mean, I would say still a fan of John Jones, but like when John Jones first came into the UFC and he was the super babyface, I was a fan of super babyface John Jones. I think a lot of people weren't. But I was a fan of babyface John Jones, and then he was just like, hey, if y'all not rocking with babyface John Jones, here comes like the most heel champion, like then hey, if you don't like John Jones the hero, here's John Jones the villain. You don't like John Jones the superhero, here comes John Jones the supervillain. You know what I mean? And like like John Jones or not, he is the he is the greatest sports combat athlete, regardless of discipline. You know what I mean? Like
which is
you
what
put
makes
John
him the
Jones
ultimate
against it,
heel.
yeah, because no matter how much you like or no matter how much you dislike him, you ain't gonna beat him. He's the person who's like, if you like him, you already that's a guaranteed win in your book. If you dislike him, you're just gonna be salty that night because name a person who's beating John Jones. You know what I mean? Like if you are the greatest sports combat athlete to ever walk the planet, you know what I mean? Like this guy is the MMA goat. It don't matter your fight promotion. Doesn't matter. I think you put John Jones against a boxer, John Jones beats that boxer. You put John Jones against a Taekwondo guy, John Jones is beating that Taekwondo guy. You put John Jones against a Kyokushin karate guy, you put him against a judo guy, he's beating those people. You put him out against a wrestler, he's beating that guy. You put him against the champion of one, I like one championship, but you put him against the champion of one, he's beating that person. You put him against PFL or like he's dusting that person. You put him against any person of any, like you can put him against the current, like whoever the biggest heavyweight is, he's dusting. You know what I mean? Like he's just that guy. He's, you know what I mean? But people want to see him lose. But that being said, Chael, when he was fighting, he was a heel. People wanted to see him lose. You know what I mean? Like people care one way or another. But like the worst thing is if people don't care at all. They don't want to see you win. They don't care if you win. They don't care if you lose. That's, I think, the worst place to be in. And I think that's what Ian Gary's going through right now. Is I think what makes this such an like I guess an odd, interesting case. Like you said, Ian Gary was a super babyface, and people were fans of that. I was a fan of that. We've had a conversation where I was telling you, oh, this dude Ian Gary in the beginning, I was like, this guy's gonna be something, you know. And then I got off the Ian Gary train. I just couldn't do it anymore. I was just like, dude, you're like you. He was someone who was so over with the fans, and then took an unnecessary heel turn. Like that's like you win. You win the like. I don't know a person who was so over with the fans and then just self-sabotaged himself. And I think what's the problem with him is the curious case of Ian Gary is that I think the reason why everyone dislikes him so much, and I think as people are getting to the point where they just don't care anymore of whatever he is doing, I think that's the thing is that like people are starting to get to a point where like they don't care if he wins or lose. They're just like, oh, we're done with this. Is because he's trying. Kobe is a heel, for better or for worse. Wonder Boy is a face. You know what I mean? The Izzy is a face. Everyone is fine with that. You know, like or dislike Kobe, he's a heel, and to see him, like him or hate him, like Izzy is a face, and he is showing up, and he has the power of the people behind him. People are tuning in. I think the problem with Ian Gary is he's trying too hard to be a face and a heel at the same time. Likes him because he's trying to be. You can't. I think you can't be a victim and also harass people. You can't ask for pity and then be a jerk. You know what I mean? You can't be, oh, I'm a hero, I'm the face, I'm the good guy, but also be like, oh, I'm the villain, I am the this. Batman can't go around Gotham being like, I'm both the hero and I'm the Joker. I'm like Bruce Wayne can't go, I'm Batman and the Joker at the same time. People are going to be concerned, be like, what? Like, choose, what is this guy doing? Like, choose a side. You know what I mean? Like, you got, and I think that's what Ian Gary's going through right now. I don't understand the heel turn for Ian Gary at all. I don't understand why he's going with the storyline either. Because he says, because he he claims to have such an issue with what's going on right now, but he is doubling down on the storyline that he himself has said he has such an issue with.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like he says, "Oh, this everything that's going on with people talking about his family is such an issue for him," but he keeps on bringing it up. Like you would imagine if someone really did have an issue. I mean, I don't know him. He maybe actually do has an issue with him, but you would imagine if I know for me, if I had an issue with, hey, like da 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 da, I ain't gonna break it up. Like you would assume if someone who has an issue with something would just like, hey, not bring it up. You know what I mean? Like mention it once, maybe address it once, and then just let it rock. But this is like 5, 6, 7 times now, and I think that fans, if you're the fan or the villain, people are gonna dislike you either way. There's gonna be people who enjoy you and people who dislike you. Everyone is gonna, no matter who the hero is, you're gonna get people who want to root for the hero, and then you're gonna get people who rooting against the hero or just don't like the hero. You're gonna get people who dislike the villain, and you're gonna get people who go for villains. You know what I mean? But when you're trying to be both the hero and the villain, I think that what makes both sides like have such disregard or such negative feelings towards, because you're trying to please everybody, but you can't do that. No, you're trying to please everybody, but also piss everyone off at the same time. And I think that is like it's just not working. It's just like you're trying to compliment someone, but also diss them at the same time. It's just like you started off as babyface. You're like, man, I'm here for the people. I'm here to be the next face for Irish MMA. All this stuff like all the stuff that has been happening in the news. Instead of just lay low, let it blow over. Everyone on the internet has such a, it's a short attention span. Lay low, just keep winning. He like doubles down on this new villain persona while also trying to be a hero. Also the response to Kobe, while Kobe's video was wild, you know what I mean? That was a wild promo cut that he pulled. And I was just like, yo, I already don't like dudes. I was like, hey, what he said about Leon's dad is crazy. I mean, like, but I was like, yo, that's such a wild video call out. They have to fight now. You know what I mean? Like, you can't, if they have to fight now, like, you can't say that kind of stuff about a person's, like, family and not, so, did not have some type of comment about it. You know what I mean? Like, and then, but the thing is, Ian Gary's response to the call out was so, I feel like both call outs, they were both wilding, but it was like a battle of the cringe. It felt like, because even though the Kobe's call out was wilding, like super out of pocket, it was super cringy too. But I feel like that's what you come to expect from Kobe. You know what I mean? Like that was like, okay, there's gonna be some cringiness. There's gonna be like kind of like he's trying to go under, like you said.
Yeah.
Where you're like, ooh, that's kind of out of pocket, but also kind of, it's cringy. You're being the villain. You know what I mean? Because he's, it's kind of like, you know what I mean? But then I never
not
thought
like a Kobe in the terms of like heel category. He's not like a cool heel. He's not like The Rock or Stone Cold or something like that.
Yeah,
he's a different type of heel. He's not trying, because even the cool heels look like they're not trying to go over, but they are trying to go over. But it's like a dance you do
exactly
with the audience in almost like a cat of like, okay, pet me, but don't pet me. I'm like independent, but I'm not independent. Whereas like there's the other type of heel of like, no, absolutely never root for me. Like I'm not even sort of cool. Like I will be a dork on purpose to make sure you never root for me.
That is a perfect example because Rock and Stone Cold are example of cool heels. You know
Right.
what I mean? Like if you were if like if you watch like anime or you watch Naruto, like Pain. I don't know if you ever seen. Have you watched Naruto? I have no clue.
I've seen a couple episodes, but I'm not like super deep in it.
Okay. Well, there's a villain called Pain, right? He
Mm.
is a villain. He is a heel, but arguably one of the coolest heels in the entire series. You know what I
Mm.
mean? Like you're like, oh man, that's like if you had to make a villain list of like coolest villains, Pain and Pain is on there. You know what I mean? Like I feel like he's pretty high on the list. You know what I mean? Like you're like, oh man, it's not he wasn't trying to be cool, but to some people they're gonna be like, oh man, that's cool. Yeah, Kobe is one of those people who are not trying to be cool. He's literally trying his best to be radioactive.
Yeah.
Like, and it's gonna be cringe sometimes, but you're just like that's a part of who he is, right? He's just trying to be the heelest heel to ever heal.
Mm.
But I have never thought the day would come where someone would out cringe Kobe's heelness. Like the response, I don't know if you saw Ian Gary's response to Kobe's call out.
I saw that there was a video, but it was like, I don't
He
know, like
was in a
3 minutes
pool.
or something like that, and I was like, I'm gonna skip this one.
Yeah, I didn't watch the whole thing. I saw the highlights. It was like I started to, and then I was like, "Ooh, this is kind of long," and it's like kind of like, you know what I mean?
Mm.
But one of the MMA websites, you know what I mean, what like and then MMA podcasts, you know what I mean, other MMA podcasts, they've kind of played the high points and played the clip, you know what I mean, whatever it may be, and then they've kind of like talked about, you know what I mean, they and that's end up because of that, actually I did end up watching it because of that. That was the most cringiest promo cut I've ever seen because it was one of those things where I'm sure in his head he was going for like, oh man, this is gonna be that. This is gonna hit. This is gonna go over with the fans. Like, oh, I'm so cool. I'm out in my pool. I'm just sitting here, just laid up. It was one of those where he was trying so hard to be cool that it wasn't cool. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like
he's
it
like
was
the
like trying too
kid in
hard
middle
to.
school who's like got on all his cool stuff and is like trying to say things that are cool. Like he's using slang that he doesn't know how to use because he's trying to be cool.
Yeah, it's like remember the Family Guy thing when he was like, I wear long sleeve shirts and the short sleeve shirts. I wear on the long sleeve shirts. I wear
Mm.
shirts type thing. You know what I mean? Like I was immediate eye roll because he was like, that's if you had to sum up his response right in 3 words, immediate eye roll. That was how you would sum up that video. Because it just made no sense. He was like, I challenge you. He was like, Kobe, I challenge you to an I quit match. It's just like, what are we talking about?
So wait, did he say in the he would leave the UFC if he loses the fight?
I can't remember. I was just so confused with it. He literally
Because like
challenged
I
him to an
super doubt
old
that.
school
Yeah, I super doubt that like
right?
if
No,
he
he
loses the
says
fight, he's gonna leave the UFC. Like,
he said that like he's gonna make him he said Kobe would leave, but he never said anything about himself. He said
oh, then that doesn't count.
one. Yes, exactly. And I was like, I can't remember. And I don't care enough to go back and watch the video again. But I remember him saying he challenged him to an old school WWF I quit match. And then one, that makes sense. I feel like if you're gonna make a call out, you gotta make it believable. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
That's just my opinion. You can't
Yeah.
challenge. That's not if I was gonna be in MMA, right? Like if I was gonna be in the UFC, right? And if I was actually being like good enough to do that, right? Or if I was gonna be in the NFL or whatever it may be, I'm not gonna be on my call out when you get the whole world watching, be like, you know, number five or so and so or whoever, I challenge you to a Money in the Bank match. Everyone would just be so confused. Like, what did he say?
Oh, so wait, he literally said,
What?
not like a loser leaves town. Like he said, an
No,
I
he
quit.
literally said, I challenge you to an I quit match. The first person to say I quit loses.
Does anyone want to tell
Like,
Ian Gary that that's called a submission? Like,
and it just was like, what? That's like being like, yo, I challenge you to a tables, ladders, and chairs match. I'll challenge you to a ladder match. One, I just the literal definition of an I quit match is like no refs, no
yeah.
disqualification. What does that even mean?
Also,
Like you could just knock
hypothetically,
him
there would
out.
be no timer. Like, you're not going to get a UFC fight sanctioned with no time. Like,
Or no refs, or no
yeah,
disqualifications. And if you really want him to say I quit, like, why don't you just knock him out? If you
yeah, or
can, you know what I
like
mean? Like,
get a submission. That's literally what a
get a
submission is
submission.
like,
Yeah,
I quit. Like,
it's exactly that. And
just
if
say,
and
I
if
want to
he
fight
can,
you,
if
and
he,
then I'll submit you. Like, there.
yeah, I would have been so fine with that. If it would have been like a submission and be like, oh, I'm gonna put you in the submission and make you tap. I'd have been like, okay, cool. Hey, that's what's up. I just don't understand that. You know what I mean? And then be just it was just hard to watch that promo cut. And then he was like, I got merch. Like,
Oh, I did see that. I saw those
oh,
terrible blue hats.
and I was just like, what are we doing here? Like, he's a
Imagine
great
buying one of
fighter.
those, by
You
the
know,
way.
like, huh? Say
Imagine
again?
buying one of those. Like, I don't know who that person is to buy one of. Imagine whoever that person is. That's an insane person to be.
That's
Who's like
yeah,
buying this very specific like
niche.
fight that may not even happen merch. Like, what are you doing?
Yes, that is an ultra niche. Like, yeah, what do you I don't know the person who I don't think yeah, like I don't know a person who buys that. Like
Yeah, he's just gonna
I
end up with like a garage full of hats.
I think the person who buys that is probably a person who makes poor financial decisions.
Yeah,
Like
and even then, how
because
many of those are even there?
yeah, and it's just like yeah, I don't know. I don't like it. Because if you do that, right?
Mhm.
Right? Let's say you do put that out there. I feel like in order to put out merch, you gotta be likable to put out merch. Like people have to like you to a degree to say they will buy $40 hat, $40 hoodie, $40 whatever. You know what I mean?
Or the
You got
design
to be
has to be
somewhat
that good.
over. Yes, exactly. You have to be somewhat over with the fans or people for them to do that. I don't, he's not even, he's trying so hard to be liked, but also be disliked that it's like a business. You can't sell ultra high quality stuff and say we're an exclusive brand, but also say we're also very cheap at the same time.
Yeah.
You can't be you can't be Gucci and say you're also great value at the same time.
Mhm.
Those are two different those are two different brands, two different demographics, two different market, you know what I mean? Like two different markets. You need to pick a side. Are you a heel or are you a hero? And then whatever you pick, stick with that.
Yeah.
And if you have to reinnovate yourself the realm of what you chose. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, it just I feel that that's a lose-lose fight for both fighters, I think.
Yeah.
No, actually, first fight, actually, first time. I think Ian Gary has become so I guess cringe to like the MMA community that I think he may be the first fighter to make to like where if they are to fight, he may accidentally make Colby be the face.
Mm.
You know, if they were to go like when you match that card, saying Colby being a face is crazy. Like, you know what I mean? Because that is, I personally would, I can't, I wouldn't go, I would not go for Colby. I mean, but, and I know it's a persona and I know it's a character, but I think not Colby, Ian is single-handedly accidentally making Colby the face of this rivalry or this beef. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, that's what
Like,
it's. I just don't understand what either side
I think
has
it's a
gained,
lose-lose.
and I think the UFC should steer away from that as quickly as possible because it's. I think that whatever value Ian Gary has to the UFC is not in what he's doing now. So if whether it's like Hunter or Dana himself, like somebody's got to call him and get him off of what he's doing because he's tanking whatever value he did have to the UFC by engaging in what he's doing and trying to
You know what's
steer
crazy?
his career the way it's going.
You know what's crazy?
Hmm.
Ian Gary is someone who's a great fighter. He's a great fighter. Like if you watching him fight, he's actually super skilled.
Hmm.
Like the striking, the distance management, the knees, like he's a really good fighter. And he's one of those fighters where you want to be a fan of him, but he makes it difficult for you to want to be a fan of him. Like he has
Yeah.
all of the makings to be a star in the UFC, but he's actively working against himself. And I have not seen that in a while where someone has all of what it takes to be a star, and it's like here, but they're like actively working against themselves to not be a star. You know what I mean? Where like people are going to get to the point where they don't care. And I think he's going to fumble the bag on that one because people want to like Ian Gary, but I feel like Ian Gary's making that difficult for the people who want to be a fan of. Because I think back when he was just fine, I feel like if someone tuned in and watched an Ian Gary fight, someone would say like, "Oh wow, like he's a really good fighter. Like I'm gonna check in and see what else is out there of his." And then you're gonna see all of his shenanigans outside of the ring, and you're gonna be like, there's so many other people that you could go for. There's Shopcott, there's JDM, there's Leon Edwards. Like, how do you not like Leon Edwards? You know what I mean? Like,
You know what's
great
funny?
guy, great story.
The more that I think about this, the more that I kind of wrap it into our discussion earlier. Unironically, if he's not going to get the title fight, if Ian Gary's going to keep doing what he's doing, Bilal should call him out. Because if Ian Gary's
Oh,
not going to be face, that opens it up for Bilal to get in there with a guy who has got like a lot of negative attention on himself, and Bilal can be the face that sends him away.
and that could potentially. Oh, we might have solved the Bilal's like issue because Ian Gary right now is so disliked that I feel that if Bilal fought Ian Gary, there's a high probability that he would get cheered. Like he would get all the cheers. Like I
Mhm.
would go for Bilal. I mean, I always end up going for Bilal in his fights, but I feel like uh that would at a press conference, maybe on a pay-per-view card. I'm not saying the co-main, but maybe somewhere in the middle. Like you put that fight card in the middle, the press conference. I think people would cheer. They would dislike Ian Gary so much that they would cheer for, like, the Bilal fans would cheer for Bilal, but I feel like the MMA community would really get behind Bilal because they dislike Ian Gary so much because he's trying to be a hero, being a hero and a heel at the same time. And then you have a guy who's being just hero. I think Ian Gary to be a face and a heel at the same time against a guy who's just a face who can also fight. I think, yeah, that might be what Bilal needs to get over with the fans. And if he were to get the finish on Ian Gary, I think that he would in overnight probably become a man of the people. You know what I mean? Like, you know what I mean? Like, I think he would get over with the fans so much in that one instance. He could parlay that into another fight with Leon because he's already
Yeah,
number two. He's
yeah. I
already
mean, not
number
to
two.
mention, if it's a 3-round fight, it's think about how much more action he could put into a 3-round fight versus a 5-round fight with his cardio.
Yeah,
So it would make his style look a lot better. He'd be the one who's advancing and looking for
yeah.
takedowns while Gary's backing up. Like it would be a very face performance.
And striker versus grappler. Bilal has a fight style because Ian Gary's not really. I feel like Ian Gary's fight style isn't necessarily like pressure, 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 pressure. You know what I mean? And and Bilal is a pressure fighter. He's like, hey, I'm gonna just push the pace until you melt type thing, and it could really see, and it really would test both fighters because you'd see like, okay, best case scenario is Bilal wins that fight. Worst case scenario, I mean, like it's less to say, but worst case scenario would be if Ian Gary won that fight, and like, but it would show that he is really a great fighter because we haven't really seen him get tested before.
Right.
So to go against a big pressure fighter, but that's Bilal's moment to really like get over with the fans to be like, hey, I beat the guy that no one liked. Hey, let me be the dude who actually like demanded like to beat the guy no one everyone's kind of getting tired of. Be like, hey, da 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 da. You know what I mean? Yeah, that
Mhm.
actually, yeah. You know what? Yeah, scrap the Colby and Ian fight. Hey, put the Ian and Bilal fight together. Let's get Bilal a title fight. You know, because I do think that's a fight Bilal can win.
Yeah.
But you know what? I feel like we have solved Bilal's like issue with the fans. Yeah,
Yeah.
but you know, speaking of people who fumbled the bag, the what's his name? Igor. Sorry, I apologize to whoever. Apologize to the guy whose name this
Yeah.
actually is.
I think it's Igor.
Igor. Sorry about that. Igor De Silva, biggest fumble probably in UFC history. Like how how do you have a UFC run that lasts for 6 hours? Maybe 6 hours, maybe like a day. I was surprised. I didn't even know he bit the dude. I, you are in the fight, and this is your UFC debut, and you full on go ha and take a chunk out of your opponent. In all the years of watching fights, in 15 years of watching fights, I've never seen this happened. I don't even think I've ever seen someone get disqualified for biting. The last person I can think of who bit someone was the last fight where I can think of where I think someone got bit was the Tyson Holyfield fight. I
Yeah, I
don't
mean,
know if
it's kind
outside
of
of that, I
hard
can't think of.
because if you think about it, like they're wearing mouthpieces. Like it's one of the required pieces of equipment that they have on before they get in the cage. Like they sit there and check them to make sure they have a cup and a mouthpiece. So like everybody's got a mouthpiece, and to somehow like leave like it looked like a dog bite with that picture that they have, like when he's raising
Mhm.
his arm in the air, like after the win. It looked like a dog bite
That was a
on
bad bite.
his skin, like deep. Like how do you get that deep with a mouth guard presumably in? Like what's the technology behind that?
How yo? What is the bite strength? What is the what is the like? That is like you know how like when they talk about like lions biting like the what is the bite force jaw strength whatever is what is that called? Is that what it's called? Bite force bite strength?
I think bite strength. Let me see. Maybe jaw force or something like that.
But you know, they usually talk about like a hippo being able to crush like watermelons, you know what I mean? Or like a lion or a tiger crushing like coconuts or something.
Hmm.
How hard do you gotta bite down on something with a mouth guard to leave an imprint of your teeth on another fighter? Like, yo, that's wild.
Yeah, and I mean, I guess the only question is like, because there's no question in my mind at least, like if you're gonna do that, you absolutely deserve to be cut. I think the only kind of fun
Oh,
conversation we can
absolutely.
have about it is like, what's worse, Paul Daly or this guy? Like, is it worse to bite somebody in like a weird position where you didn't even really need to, or to be like Paul Daly and be fighting people after the fight's over?
That that's fair. I think definitely the bite. I think the bite
Yeah,
is a madness because I like literally I can't think of an instance in the last 30 years of the UFC where someone's bitten someone.
yeah, and I think
Like,
the thing that makes it kind of worse is just that the bacteria and stuff in your mouth to be like biting people is the thing that makes it gross and like worse than
wild.
fighting somebody after the fight's over.
And then yo, how do you finally make it to the UFC? How do you fumble the bag that hard to
Yeah,
like on your debut in the UFC in the top fight promotion like in the you've made it. This is the equivalent of making it to the NFL or the NBA or the like MLB. You know what I mean? Like you are like you've made it. You've arrived. You've had your debut. You're an undefeated fighter, and you go out and your first loss wasn't because you got knocked out. Wasn't because you got submitted. Wasn't because you lost by decision. The first loss is due, just like we said about Ian Gary, him working against himself. Like, yeah, like when Dana said he had cut, like released him from the UFC, I was like, that's totally understandable. You know, actually, they paid him. They gave the UFC gave him like originally like 25K, $25,000 to be like, hey, sorry, there's no way we could have known that he was gonna like
yeah,
bite you. Like, there's no data across the last 30 years that could even predicted that this dude was gonna bite you up against the cage. Like, if someone was out in the world and said, "Oh, let me make sure I'm getting the name right again." If someone was out in the world and said, was watching what was it, the prelims, right?
Hmm.
If someone, you know how like people make picks and say this person by knockout, this person by submission, this person by decision. If there was a person who said Igor da Silva versus Andre Lima wins is gonna win by disqualification in the second round, that's already like you should go play the lottery. And then to even if someone even were to say Andre Lima second round disqualification by bite, I think that person should go ahead and just get the lottery money. You know what I mean? Like if someone actually was like that person should play the lottery and probably has and would have won if they were to guess that specifically, because who could have guessed that? But on a fun note, I guess he got a tattoo the of it and said he got bit but bonus. And I guess Dana White saw that and was like, we were gonna give you 25, but now we're gonna give you 50. That's pretty awesome. So for Andre Lima, all things considered, great debut. I think this is, if I'm not mistaken, I think this was his debut fight. For this to be, I mean, it sucks to get bit and have your first fight be like a disqualification. I think it counts as a win. I don't know if it counts as a win or a no contest, but
It's a win.
50K? Oh, it's a win? Okay, a win in 50K? Like, but not bad at it. Like,
Well, plus, I mean, if, you know, like we said, the number one rule is to be memorable and have people care. And this is as memorable a debut as you're going to have without like
yeah,
some spectacular, insane, like flying knockout thing. So it's people know who you are. It's at least for a first fight threshold for people that watch the prelims. Like you got a good base going as far as people who know you and have heard of you.
right? And so, speaking of five promotions, so a hypothetical situation, right?
Oh wait, before we go on to that, I just
You,
want to touch
huh,
on a couple of things on 299 before we wrap it up
yeah,
and
go
go
ahead.
on to hypothetical. So these are super quick hits for me. So just like quick shout out to Curtis Blades getting it done on Gelton Almeida and having
Oh, yeah, that was a good
a
fight.
super great call out ready in the chamber with Tom Aspinall. And
Yeah,
the latest I've heard is that Tom Aspinall seems to be open to that. So like good on you, Curtis Blades, getting it out there and possibly securing yourself a title eliminator. And I mean the sort of perseverance that Curtis Blades has showed throughout his career is really commendable, and hopefully something good happens for him because I mean like he's earned everything that he's got. It's I mean the amount of comebacks he's had and setbacks, it's really something. So I thought that was like a moment that deserved a shout out,
oh,
and then it's
absolutely.
the main and the co-main I wanted to touch on quickly also if you have thoughts on those.
Let's see, who is the co-main?
That's Poirier and Benoit Saint Denis.
Oh man, yeah, that was a good fight. Shout out to Dustin Poirier, but really quickly before that,
Mhm.
I agree. Shout out to Curtis Blades because that was a good fight. Because I know a lot of people were going into that fight with the mindset of, okay, Jailton Almeida is gonna win, and then after that, who can we put up against? Okay, maybe Jailton versus Cyril Gane, or maybe Jailton versus like whoever the number three is, maybe Sergey Pavlovich or something. You know what I mean? Like, I know that going into it, people were like on the Jailton hype train, and me included, I was like, man, this dude's something special. Sorry, Palm's kicking my butt if you hear me sniffling a lot, but Jailton came in with a lot of hype, and I think a lot of people were overlooking Curtis Blades in this fight. And Curtis Blades came into it and was like, nah, I'm not a stepping stone for nobody. Like, hey, gatekeeper, what? Like, nah, like I'm still here to be a champion, to go for the belt. Like, great fit. Like, I think that was a great fight for him. Great way to bounce back, stuff the takedown, push the head into, you know what I mean? And it was just getting with the hammer fist. I was like, it was a really good like what you call it, like golf, the golf club, like good job, you know what I mean?
Mhm.
So I would say, yeah, shout out to Curtis Blades, and then shout out to Dustin Poirier too, to bounce back from the from the Gaethje loss to like going against again another veteran who kind of like pushed back against the hype train, because I know a lot of people. There was also a lot of people who were also big on BSD, Benoit Saint Denis, and already looking past this fight of like, okay, who can we put BSD against next? Who can we put Benoit Saint Denis against next? Who can we? Okay, maybe Gaethje. No, I think he already fought Gaethje, no? Or maybe like they were just like, who can we put him against next? How can we continue to fast roll this man into a title shot? Former French Special Forces, all these knockouts, really cool nickname. His nickname's God of War. Like he's got all the makings to be like a star. And I think a lot of people were kind of like already kind of saying like, okay, what's next? Who's next? And the Dustin Poirier kind of like turned back the clock. And I know even Dustin Poirier was saying that like, hey, if he were to lose that fight, then it's probably time to like go ahead and retire, because he was already talking about retiring. And while that, I was just not, I didn't want to see that happen, because I feel like Dustin Poirier's had such a like legendary kind of storied career in the UFC. As a fan, I see him win. I am a fan of Benoit Saint Denis, but I'm also a fan of Dustin Poirier. And I was like, while I thought Benoit Saint Denis was gonna win just because he's been on a roll, the fan in me was like, I really would like to see Dustin Poirier just like pull. I'm really hoping he doesn't retire, and I'm hoping he has like what it takes to like pull out another finish and kind of like turn back the clock, And so I was happy to see Dustin Poirier get that win, get back into the win column, and potentially fight Islam Makhachev next for the title. Gaethje and Holloway, they're fighting in a couple weeks. They're fighting at 300. Chances are they won't be. I think based on the facts, I think that you can't have a Gaethje Holloway fight, and I don't imagine a scenario where Justin Gaethje fights Max Holloway, and either one of them be ready to fight by June. Like, that's just not how they fight. Their fight style is like a gladiator fight style where they're like, they're here to they're down to get down. So I don't see this being like a quick first round knockout. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I'm imagining this is going to be like how the Gaethje versus Michael Chandler fight was. Like, that was a brawl. Like, that's just how they fight. They're down to get down, and they're going to have like a slobber knocker match essentially. I don't see. So I think Poirier lined it up perfectly where he may have. I'm happy to see him get the win and potentially get like one more run at the title, because I do think he can win that fight against Islam, but I think it's a 50-50. Thoughts on Chito Vera versus Sean O'Malley? Props to Sean O'Malley for a very dominant title defense. Yeah, it was just very dominant performance where Sean was winning pretty much all of the rounds. Yeah, I mean, there was, if I'm not mistaken, there was that one moment in like round 4 where like Cheeto like was like, oh, he's doing something. But overall, that was a pretty dominant performance. Like a really good performance for Sean O'Malley in his like first title defense. What about you?
Yeah, so it's congrats to Dustin Poirier on possibly like pushing himself back into another title shot. It's I think that given how the UFC has lined up the other events, I think it's going to work out for him and good for him to put himself in that situation. For Benoit Saint Denis, like okay, a little bit too much to bite off at this point in your career, but still plenty of time. So no harm, no foul. Pick yourself back up, and you'll be back. In my mind, yeah. So with the main event, like Sean looked really good. He managed distance really well. He got off and landed all his shots. It's similar to the Kevin Holland complaints from earlier. I just don't really know what Cheeto was doing. And like you said, he did have the one moment in the 5th, right before the fight ended, where he hit Sean with a body shot that was super nice and had him a little bit hurt. But it's too little too late. Sean won at least 4 of the rounds, maybe all 5. And I think that was a really the overwhelming kind of emotion that I have attached to that for Cheeto especially is just disappointment, because I think that he is going to be personally disappointed with how that went. I think more than people being disappointed in him, I think he's going to look back on that as a huge missed opportunity to give himself a chance to be a world champion. And I think the road back is going to be a difficult one because that division's super tough. But as far as Sean, I'm super excited for him to continue and for the way that he's conducted himself as champion. I think he's done some really good moves. And I'm very excited to see him fight Marab next. I think that is what's next. And I think we're in a good groove now at 135 where we know who the champ is and we know who's coming for him. So I think maybe the title fight wasn't everything that we all wanted it to be, but we did get closure on that for now. And I think we're ready to move forward into the next storyline. And I think that's what it's all about, man.
Oh yeah. I'm hoping again, yeah, props to Sean and then for his first time defense, and if it may be a tough journey back to the top for Cheeto, but I think if anyone can rally themselves back together for another proper title run, I think it is Cheeto Vera because I think if you can shake off that match, shake off the loss, and get back in the gym, I really do think that Cheeto Vera could put together the fights needed to like make another run because he's a good fighter. I think that he could do it.
Yeah.
But yeah, like we'll see. But in the meantime, like you said, we know who the champion is. We know who the next people are, and then props to Sean on a dominant performance. The apologies for anyone who's listening and is annoyed with the sniffles.
Okay, well, we're on to our final segment, so we'll go into our draft style. It's 5 fighters to start a promotion with. We're going strictly for the UFC for this particular one, and I'll let you have first pick, man. Who do you got?
Okay, so the gist of it, you're starting a promotion. You got your group of fighters already. You're getting your group of fighters together, and you choose any 5 people from the UFC to build your brand around. These are going to be your 5 people you're trying to build your brand off of. Curious to hear if you have your 5, if you know what 5 you would want to build your brand around, leave them in the comments. let us. We'd like to know who are your five that you would be willing to like build your own fight promotion around if you could choose any five fighters from the UFC. I think my first round pick is going to be Cyril Gahn because I think that having a heavyweight star when you're trying to build, I feel like would be important to have like a heavyweight if you're going to build like a fight promotion. I think having a heavyweight would be having a heavyweight star would be good for that. And I think Cyril has everything you would need in a heavyweight to become a star. Like he has the athleticism, he has the skills, he has the charisma, he has the personality. The media loves him. You know what I mean? He literally looks like a comic book character. You know what I mean? 6'4", like 4250. He's got the footwork, the striking. He's got I think I think he has what you need to like become. He has the personality. His personality sells. You know what I mean? So I think that like, and he's a really great fighter. So I think that like having a person like that at heavyweight is like a good way to kind of like, you have your heavyweights, but that be like your heavyweight champion, you know? So that's going to be my first pick.
Okay, so I had a similar sort of logic, but I picked a different person. So it's
Mm-hmm.
for me, same sort of logic. Want to go to heavyweight, marquee division. It's gets a lot of attention for the size and the skills, and a guy who's got it all is Tom Aspinall. It's
Ooh, that's a good pick.
yeah, it's like you said, a lot of similar sort of features. Has like the charisma, is good on the mic. It's is not going to get you in big trouble. Super media friendly. It's definitely a guy who you can put your main belt on and have represent you, and there's not going to be any problems. So Tom Aspinall, my number one pick.
Ooh, that's good. You know who I'm picking for my second? Lupi Godinez.
Okay.
The feel let me see because I feel like she is, let me make sure I get the weight right, strawweight, in my opinion, the future strawweight champion, to build up a really good women's division as well, to have like, because I feel like having Cyril as like a good start for like the men's division. I feel like having Lupi Godinez to be like, you have your like your female fighters. I feel that like, but to build it around like having Lupi as like the strawweight champion, I feel like she has the personality. She has like, I feel like I've been telling people since she was on the prelims. I'm telling you, I'd be great at picking who's gonna be future champions. I'm telling you, I've been saying that she's gonna be the champion for a minute. She's awesome. She's a great fighter, great striker, great wrestler. As a fellow wrestler, I pull for my wrestlers. The I feel that like she has very like main character energy. You know what I mean? I think she has a dope personality. When she's on the mic, I'm always here for it. When she's striking, the striking wise, dope fighter. Great wrestling, great striking, great wrestling. As you can see, there's a pattern. I'm going with good strikers, good wrestlers. We try to have an exciting brand, but yeah, I think that she would be a really awesome pick to like kind of like build a women's division around, because again, great with the fans, great personality, great striker. I feel like just all around just dope person. And I think future champion, I think she's champion by the end of like 2024, maybe end of 2024, early 2025, I think she becomes champion. I'm just putting it out there. I think sometime between 2024 and 2025, Lupi Godinez becomes champion. I'm saying it now. Like, I've been saying it, but just on air, I'm saying it now.
Okay.
Second
So
round pick for me.
okay, that brings me to my second pick. I'm going a little bit more of a favorite than I feel like you kind of went a little underground on me, a little bit of a sleeper. I'm going for more of a blue chip kind of obvious one. I'll take Ilya Taporia. It's
Oh, yeah, that's good.
featherweight king. It's exploding onto the scene. He's making these public appearances in Spain and bringing the belt with him. And there's all these crowds and people. It seems like he's blossoming into a phenomenon. Like right before our eyes right now, and it's
Mhm.
you can see I'm kind of starting to piece it together a little bit. Young champs who are ready to come into their own
Mhm.
and kind of push into their own like legend that they're kind of crafting now, and they're set up for it. So it's got all
Mhm.
the skills in the world, good finisher, like has the Spanish crossover. He's working on his English, got pretty good English. It's I mean, guy can do it all. Another face for the company as my second round pick, Ilya Taporia.
I think for my third round pick, I think that I'm picking Michael Venom Page,
Okay.
MVP. I think he builds out the welterweight division. I know he's kind of closer to like the end of his career, closer than the beginning. He's still in his prime, I feel like, but he's one of the older fighters. But I think that he's one of the older fighters that could inspire the new generation of fighters that you could bring in. You know, you see because he has the personality. Again, he has the personality. He has the striking ability. He's a superstar when it comes to like the Taekwondo striking. So striking in general. You know what I mean? He has he has the showmanship. He has the creativity. You know what I mean? Like I think that like again, big media friendly. You know what I mean? But then also just the showmanship. You know, I think that like his striking, his personality, all that stuff. I think that could how like Connor had a ripple effect on the UFC. You know what I mean? I think that MVP would have that same on for mine is that people be like, oh man, see your Cyril Gons, you see your Lupe Godinez, you see um your MVPs, as you probably tell, I'm going very like personality like heavy, very like striking heavy, you know what I mean? Striking grappling heavy, striking wrestling heavy. But yeah, like I think that one would be he has the UK fans. He's already kind of like a bigger name. He's already a well established fighter who could bring a lot of eyes. You know what I mean? So I think that that would be my next pick, third pick.
Okay. Uh, I'm going to my first and maybe my only non-champion that I'm going to pick on the third round. I'm going Israel Adesanya. It's
Ooh,
easy,
that's a good.
bringing the attention, the fans, the skills, and it's especially being kind of a starting promotion. Maybe I don't have the talent to match him right away, but that'll be good news because he's just going to put more on his highlight tape, and I can trust him to entertain thoroughly in all phases of the fight game. So it's Izzy's going to come in and hold up that middleweight division for me.
That's a good one. That's the word I was looking for. Michael Van Page is going to entertain, but also he can like uh low key if he wanted to mentor, like it's like some of the other fighters in the division, he can like mentor them. Hey, and this is how you like be great. Like watch the trajectory. You know, if you want to see someone become a star, MVP, they could be like, okay, cool. MVP's a good dude. He's a face. He's out here making things happen. But Izzy's a really good choice too. I think my fourth choice, another fighter who's on the come up, similar to Lupe Godinez, Rinya Nakamura for Japan, So I think that he is someone who I think is going to be, I believe he is bantamweight. Let me just double check. The bantamweight. Young dude, who's still has like he has a very promising future ahead. U20, I believe he was U20 world champion wrestling. He's essentially, I feel like low key like a Japanese Bo Nickel, you know what I mean? Where he has come into the UFC, he was like first winner of the UFC Road to Asia, you know what I mean? Tournament. He hasn't lost yet, undefeated. He's got the wrestling, he's got the striking, he's working on his English. But he has like that kind of like personality. He has that like I feel like that aura, that like that main character energy. You know what I mean? The charisma. I think he's building up. So I think that like he is someone who you could build the bantamweight around because he has an exciting fight style. similar to Loopy, similar to Cyril, similar to Michael Venom MVP. They all have like exciting fight styles who are like very like they have exciting fighting styles, very media friendly, have dope personalities, from what I've seen. So I think that like he is someone, and he's a younger fighter, so that means he's be champ for a while. Have him be the champion for like the bantamweights.
Okay, that brings me on to my fourth, and I'm gonna go with a face to put on to my women's divisions to lead the company on that side, and I'm gonna go with Alexa Grasso, the pound for pound
Oh,
number
that's
one
great. That's great.
for women's MMA right now. It's super
Hmm.
marketable, got all the skills to back it up. It's absolutely gonna carry a fan base with her, and super likable, super easy to put on a poster. It's absolutely gonna fit right into my promotion and be one of the big stars. In the fourth, Alexa Grasso. All right, last
Oh
pick. Go
yeah,
ahead.
that's a great that's a great pick. That's an amazing pick. Um, because he actually stole my pick because that was actually going to
Is
be
that what
my
you're
next
going
pick
for?
is Alexa Grasso. So like, but it's fine. It's cool. I'll pick another one.
Okay.
I'll pick another. It's okay. It's fine. um, I would say my final pick would be Charles Oliveira,
That's a good pick.
the Super Saiyan Oliveira. That's who I'm gonna pick. He has the records. He has the fan base. He has the likability. He has an exciting fight style. Has the personality, the go off with the fans. Has a very likable. He's very likable, just like the other four that I picked. Um, has that charisma like the other four. Has the striking. Has the grappling. Has the submissions. You know what I mean? For the like be champion of the lightweights. So even though so far my divisions, my like the stars of my promotion so far are all like strikers and wrestlers, have my like jujitsu dude in like to bounce it off, to round things out. But yeah, that's why I picked my five. It's gonna be Cyril Gahn, um, Lupe Godinez, MVP Michael Venom Page, Renya Nakamura, future champion at bantamweight. I'm saying this now. I've been saying this since I saw him debut. Dude's amazing. And then uh uh Charles Oliveira. Yeah.
Okay. So
Brings
I'm
he's very
sticking.
well known.
Yes, I like that pick, but I'm sticking in the same division, and I'm gonna grab the champ. I'll take Islam Makhachev as my fifth.
It's a good pick.
It
Good pick.
brings his own sort of fan base with him. I think if as the promoter, if I lean on him a little bit, I think he might be willing to show some more personality and kind of take on some of the duties of bringing attention and entertainment to the fans because I do think he has the personality, and if I lean on him, he'll show a little bit more of it and absolutely has the skills to back it up. So he'll be my fifth. I got Aspinall. I have uh, Taporia. I have Adesanya. I have Makachev and Grasso. Those are my five.
Those are good picks because I feel like I have a mixture of like people on the come up and more established champions and fighters. Uh like not champions, former champions, more established, like former champions and more established fighters mixed in with the younger upcoming guys. Because as you have like your like MVPs and Charles Oliveira's retire, then you have your Lupe Godinez and Renya Nakamura and like Sergan kind of like stepping up into the forefront, and that like they're already stars, but then like they can continue on, and then by that time hopefully some new stars come along, like kind of phase it up. But yeah, I feel like we both came up with some really good picks.
Yeah, and I think the other thing that it highlights is just how good the talent roster of the UFC is right now. That we
Yeah,
could sit here and
exactly.
make two separate promotions by picking off their talent roster, and have some pretty fun ones.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Exactly. Well, this has been a long one. It's been a good one. Uh, if you liked us, awesome, cool, great. If you didn't, then it's why are you still watching? We're
If you
just
did,
two dudes
congratulations,
chopping it.
2.5 hours.
Yeah, exactly. Like we appreciate the watch. We appreciate the watch time. If you think we're great, awesome, great. You know, like we're just two dudes chopping it up about the sport we enjoy. Check out next time. We hope to see you there. We hope that you'll join us for another convo. Yeah. See y'all later. Have a good night, or evening, or morning, or afternoon, wherever you are in the world. See y'all later. Have a good one.
All right,
Yeah.
peace.